Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad you're joining us again this evening. And like I've said before, we're very happy there are people like you out there that are interested in what's happening in our cities. Because it is important for good city government that the city council, the city staff, and the residents are in contact with each other and ideas can flow back and forth. So we're glad that you're interested in what's happening in our cities. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have someone on from one of the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to bring us up to date on some of the issues, projects, things that are going on in the city or that will be happening in the future. And then we do encourage you, if you're in the city that we're talking to that evening, be sure to take down the email and the phone number of our guests so that if you find an area that really interests you, you can be in contact. Now tonight, we're very happy to welcome Dan Ryan. He's on the Brooklyn Center City Council and has been on our show several times. We're glad to have you with us again.
Thanks, Juanita. Appreciate the invitation.
And then he knows that I'm going to have him introduce himself out to you out there with a little information for those of you that don't know him.
Well, again, I'm Dan Ryan. I've served on the Brooklyn Center City Council since 2007. On my background, my family moved to Brooklyn Center when I was very young. I went to Earl Brown Elementary, Brooklyn Center High School, and attended the University of Minnesota, where I earned a bachelor's degree. As a young man, I moved away for a number of years. Then in 1991, I moved back when my wife and I bought our home in Brooklyn Center. I figure adding my early days in Brooklyn Center and the last 26 years, I have 43 years in Brooklyn Center. My parents lived in Brooklyn Center until 2005. I was always coming back to visit them. And I worked for a manufacturing company, TCR Corporation, from 1983 to 2002, 19 years. So I was always in touch with my friends and family in the city. My last job, I worked as a purchasing materials manager for an industrial operation, and I retired from full-time employment in 2011. Again, I was elected to the City Council the first time in 2006, re-elected in 2010 and 2014. It's been a great honor and privilege to serve the citizens of Brooklyn Center, to serve my hometown.
Okay, let's move on. You've got a lot of public work and infrastructure improvements that you've been working on in Brooklyn Center. Can you tell us about some of what's recently happened?
Well, yes, and I'm pleased that you asked me about that because we've had a lot of activity this year. Infrastructure, you hear this term a lot, but
right.
it really refers to good stewardship.
Oh, yes.
Where you preserve the assets of your city. Mm-hmm. You keep things up in good shape on a very regular and well-planned basis. That way you don't get hit with really big bills that you can't handle. It's just like planning a couple of years ahead before you re-roof your house.
Oh, sure.
You know, and the city has a really good process for that. We have a 15-year capital improvement plan that in great detail looks at all of our public assets and their condition and when Public Works anticipates that they would need major maintenance or replacement.
Right. So you prepare ahead of time so you can do it.
Yeah, and actually part of our annual budget process, the council and working with the Financial Commission, very able group of knowledgeable volunteers who advise us on the city's finances, and with city staff, senior staff, of course, we review that capital improvement plan each year as part of the budget cycle. And that way it's always kept up to date, and if we have to move things around because of extraordinary costs, or there are occasions when there are targets of opportunity we can do things a little more efficiently and cheaper, doing them all together.
Right. Now, different projects get brought before the council in public work projects. What are some of the overall considerations that the council is looking for from the presentation that's being made to you? What are the concerns that you have that you want to be sure are carried forward by the project?
Sure. Well, public works professionals do a great job of evaluating the condition of whatever the public asset might be, give us a report on what they feel needs to be corrected or replaced, and we get that report. Then the council reviews it. It's subject to our approval. Then when it goes forward, the Public Works will have a meeting where all the especially for the example of our street utility replacement projects, which we do one every year. Right. The staff will send out letters to all the affected property owners. They come to the meeting, and the staff reviews the nature of the street utility project and goes over what the assessment cost is. And there's a big concern too with folks wanting to preserve their shade trees along the boulevard or on the fringe of their easement, where would be affected by that project.
Now, not so long ago, you put in a water treatment plant. Maybe you can talk a little bit about why and how that came into being.
Well, we did it to protect the health of the public. I believe it was in 2013 when I first learned of some recent research by public health researchers who had determined that high levels of manganese, very common, ubiquitous mineral that's found in water virtually across the state of Minnesota, that at greater than 100 parts per million, it would be a risk to the public health. And we were at about 3 times that. Ooh. Now you might ask yourself, why, after all the years that Brooklyn Center was distributing water at that level of manganese, well, Brooklyn Park also had, a lot of other cities have had higher levels of manganese. But this was very new findings. And so we realized that according to these newer findings, which primarily focused on risk to prenatal and nursing infants who would be given formula mixed with that water, that it would pose a potential developmental risk. Oh, sure. And at 3 times the recommended level, it probably wasn't good for the general population either.
So you had a strong reason.
Yeah, and again, we want our water to be safe and the highest quality.
Right. Now, are there any areas where you've got some public work projects that are coming into being where that you're looking ahead and you say, oh yeah, we've got to work on that?
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing another neighborhood reconstruction project, and that will be the Firehouse neighborhood. Okay. And that is north of 65th Avenue from Emerson East to Camden Avenue, all the way north to 73rd. So that's in the upper northeast corner of the city. And we'll also be doing a pavement reconstruction on 51st Avenue. But this year we done a pavement reconstruction, and we did a bike trail along 57th Avenue from I-94 to Humboldt, and we also did 69th Avenue pavement replacement and a trail, and some of the below street utilities. And also we had to repave France Avenue from 69th to the north boundary, 73rd.
Okay, we're going to switch gears again. And recently, or within not too distant past, there's been a rebranding process in Brooklyn Center.
Oh, yes.
So last summer, you had reimagining or rebranding. Can you tell us about what that is and what happened?
Well, rebranding is essentially a marketing activity. I know I had read for some time about different cities going through a rebranding exercise and putting in place a communications program to follow on. I was skeptical, to be frank, but while it wasn't really that expensive relative to the size of other activities in our budget, we do a lot of different communications. It comes under that heading. But I wanted to be sure that we get good value for our money.
Right.
What convinced me that, what changed my mind about it, is I had a conversation with, I call him Bill, that's not his real name, but he's a real estate investor. He owns a lot of homes. He owns a number of homes, a lot of other properties across the metro. And when leasing one of the single-family, or leasing single-family houses, on a number of occasions, he'd show the house. He'd get a very good response from the prospective renter. They'd say, in the case where this is one of the first places we looked at, we want to check some other properties, but we're really interested. Well, if he wouldn't hear back from that prospect, he'd call the person who had expressed interest in renting the house because they like the neighborhood, they like the home. He'd get the response that, well, my coworkers said that Brooklyn Center was a bad place. Brooklyn Center isn't safe. And it doesn't matter if we can show them data from the police department that Brooklyn Center is as safe as it's been since the mid-1980s. But that's the perception that people have.
And
it's like making a bad first impression. It takes a lot of effort to get past that. So the whole rebranding exercise was also in response to what we noticed through our citizen professional polling we do every 4 years. Our citizens show very high approval of their city across a whole range of key indicators. But we hear from those same residents who tell us that their family, their friends who don't live in the city, don't know the city, they say bad things about it. So what we did is we engaged a consultant, CenturyLink, and they organized the effort. They helped us to promote the rebranding sessions. And we got focus groups together, put it on our website. We put it out on social media, through the other means. And we got a pretty good turnout. We got 30, 40 different people who met a number of occasions, and they looked at strengths, weaknesses of the city, what they like about the city, what should be improved, and that helped us to develop some targets. Also, we learned that the folks who were polled, and there also was an online survey that got a pretty high volume response, that most of the people didn't like the logo. So in conjunction with the rebranding and getting more positive messages out, we thought it would be opportune time to present the city with a new logo and a new tagline. And the tagline is "At the Center." And I believe I gave you a copy of the logo.
I'll have it up on. I'll have it up on this.
See it.
We'll put it in place. Why do you think this process is important for the city?
Well, again, I think having a less than positive image hurts the city. It's hard to measure how much it's cost us. But just the two examples that I used to illustrate the problem brought it home to me. And left me with the impression that, given what I had learned about the experience of other cities, that we should do this.
So it's a process to change people's perceptions.
Yeah, and it's always a challenge. But I think with getting, there's a lot of good things that are going on.
Oh, yeah.
We have great people who live in the city. They volunteer. They work really hard to make things better. They're active in their churches. They volunteer for the Earl Brown Days,
right,
and many other activities. If we publicize that, plus the many other things that we're doing. For example, how we're really transforming the city with commercial redevelopment.
Oh, yes.
We're also working really hard to keep the neighborhoods up. And all those things, getting those positive messages out through social media, Twitter. We also have a new feature called Net Alert, and that is on our website, and you can have automatic notices for meetings. And
oh, sure.
so it's all part of that communications, and people want to be in touch with the city through through their phones, through apps, and have all of that information at their fingertips. So that's also part of the rebranding.
Well, I think that it is important for any city to look at where they're at and where they want people to know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like Coca-Cola. You mention it, and people know what it is. And most people would give a positive response.
And doing the rebranding focuses everybody on moving positive examples out into the public.
Exactly. Not with everyone, but there are a few folks in the city, I think, who have, as much as they love their hometown, they have a little bit of a inferiority complex about it. And so we want to overcome that with our residents as well.
Right. Now, on our show, we've been talking over a period of time a little bit about the affordable housing issue, and needs vary by different communities. Has the Brooklyn Center Council spent any time dealing with the issue of affordable housing?
At one work session, the council received a request for a request from some affordable housing advocates to adopt policies that they believed would lead to lower rents in the city. We did not approve or adopt that policy. At another work session, the council received a request to accept a 4D tax classification for an apartment building in the city that gives some property tax relief if there are limits placed on future rent increases. We are considering it.
Because affordable housing can mean housing for low-income people, but it can also mean housing for people that are beginning in areas like teaching, or your policemen, or people that are just starting out jobs need affordable housing. How large do you think that need is in your city?
Well, Juanita, the question is, excuse me.
Sure.
The question is, what is affordable?
Right.
According to the Met Council, 85% of Brooklyn Center's housing is affordable.
Right.
And that is affordable for beginning teachers and police officers, but expensive for folks who work in low-wage jobs and don't earn a living wage. I believe there's a great need for affordable housing for low-income people across the metro area.
There definitely is.
But this is a region-wide problem, one that calls for a regional solution. It's not a problem that should be left to one city or only a few cities. I think there also should be a lot more discussion about why more people aren't receiving a living wage for a day's work.
That ties right into that
Absolutely.
issue, definitely.
And I think in some cases that very critical issue is overlooked.
Oh, right. Now, in the newspaper, I followed along on a kind of a related issue, that apartment buildings that are affordable to general people are being remodeled, and then it's increased in the cost, so the people living there are out of luck. Do you have anything like that happening in Brooklyn Center?
We've had several apartment complexes that had suffered from years of deferred maintenance.
Oh, yeah, because they need to keep up, right?
Yeah. And they've recently gotten repaired and remodeled. It's in the city's best interest that properties are well maintained, safe, and brought up to code. But after those apartments were improved, the Met Council this year kept their high affordability rating as 85% affordable.
Oh, okay. So that that's not a problem that you're having in your city.
Well, again, I think it is a legitimate concern for those households that are very low income and are struggling.
Right.
And that really calls for a regional solution. And it is my humble opinion, I think that the state and the federal government together have failed in their responsibility to meet that need.
Right.
And that takes resources beyond the resources of a small city.
Definitely. Now, has your council had any discussions about high density housing? Because there's a request from Met Council to do that in order to meet the needs for people that can afford a place to live.
Yeah, and again, we've had some issues with Met Council because you may be aware of the fact that Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and Richfield.
That's what got me interested in it.
Entered into that housing complaint back, it's been 2 years now or more since we entered that complaint. And it'll take, who knows when before it gets resolved. But as far as high density in Brooklyn Center, no, we've not had that discussion. This year, as you know, we built an affordable affordable housing apartment for seniors. That was the sanctuary. And, I'm in favor of that and building senior assisted living rental housing that is affordable for seniors.
Yeah, it's just a general thing, and I thought, well, look into the different cities and see what's happening in our area.
Well, the Met Council would really like us to build very low-income housing, and I think that gets to those policies that Met Council has put in place since the 1980s, which have caused concentration of poverty in the inner city. And we think Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and Richfield, we entered into that complaint for that very reason, and we think that that's bad policy. And we frankly believe that the wealthier communities in the metropolitan area should bear their fair share of the burden.
No, it's a current issue, but it's going to go on for a long time, I think.
I'm afraid so.
Now, to switch to Brooklyn Center's comprehensive plan, all of our cities are having to work and update their comprehensive plan because it's done every 10 years. So I thought we'll just touch base a little bit on what Brooklyn Center's been doing in that regard.
Well, of course, our comp plan is coming up for review and renewal. We have to meet that deadline of December the 31st, 2018. And the staff has been reviewing the existing comp plan for any and all revisions that are necessary. And we'll also conduct public meetings where we encourage residents to come in and look at the plan and share their ideas, their thoughts, and aspirations. And again, a comp plan is an aspirational exercise. It tries to look at where the community's been, where it is, and where they would like it to go. And it involves a great amount of detail, great massive of data, as you know, and many maps and illustrations and descriptions of what developments are believed that the staff, the city, the citizens, the electeds believe are needed, and what we hope can happen in the future.
Now, some of the areas, maybe you can run across them. What are the areas that the comprehensive plan focuses on?
Well, the Met Council actually is responsible.
Yeah, they tell you what you have to look at.
Yeah, and so their purview is planning, and it's necessary. Some entity has to get our small cities
Right.
to get together and coordinate our activities.
Right.
The Met Council has actually what's referred to as 4 systems. And that, of course, is land use,
Right.
Transit,
Right.
Wastewater treatment, and parks,
Right.
and green space. But in addition to that, this year the comp plan will include sections on housing, sustainability, and the environment. And it's a very complex document.
Oh, yes.
And if anybody, those intrepid souls who would venture to the Met Council's website, you can read it for quite a while and still feel like you've only dipped your toe in the water.
Well, now, people might be interested in parts of those areas, so you'll have some hearings where people can come and give you their ideas.
Yes, exactly. And the people who have the expertise in this
Right.
area are the development director, the zoning official, and it's a specialty, and it really does come down to some basic value choices.
Oh, yeah.
But it takes some specialists with expertise to get through all the planning speak,
Right.
and help people to understand and encourage them to share with us what their choices would be.
Right. Now, is your current comprehensive plan on your city's website?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I don't access it. I
Okay,
have
right.
I have the 2009
Yeah, they give
hard
it to you.
copy.
They
I'm
give
a little
it to you.
old-fashioned.
But people can go there and kind of review it and to see if there's any areas that concern them,
Exactly.
because you do need the input. So
yes.
people have to be aware that it's up and coming, and you're going to have your input sessions in the next year.
Yes, and just as we did in 2009, starting in the
Right.
late summer and into the fall,
Yeah.
we had 2 or 3 sessions where we invited the public in, and again, in that case, we had outside consultant who just specialized on developing the plan.
Right.
And there was a lot of explanation about how the process would work. Of course, it goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviews the plan, has public hearings.
Right.
They vote to approve or not. They pass it on to the council. We review it, vote to approve or not, and then submit it to the Met Council. Again, I think with having those people who understand the process and
Right.
the content, it gives folks a chance to, it helps them to
Right.
decide those things, whether it refers to parks or new development.
Right. So it's kind of that's going to be getting into gear in this coming year.
Yes, exactly. And again, the deadline for that is December the 31st,
Right.
2018.
Okay.
So we have some time.
Right. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming and sharing your experiences and your information with our audience out there. And remember to be in touch with your city council. If any of the areas we talked about tonight resonate with you, see what your city's doing. And we hope you'll join us next week. Bye.